In this video we are going to take a closer look at the Proteus Kill Team of the Deathwatch and how it plays in 10th edition. In the first part we will go through all the relevant rules and datasheets available to this kill team. In the second part we will then look at how to potentially use it in 10th edition. Lastly, there will be some modeling recommendations and a quick wrap-up of what has been covered. This is the fourth release of a 4-part series, with each part covering one of the different kill teams available to the Deathwatch.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Temmer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
The kill teams are the unique army rule of the Deathwatch, allowing us to combine a selection of different datasheets into a single unit. Contrary to 9th edition, where kill teams counted as the base troops of a Deathwatch army, they are not battle line in 10th edition, meaning that they fall under the rule of 3, aka we can pick up to 3 of the same kill team in an army list. For every kill team, the initial 5 models are always set in stone, and we can think of these as paying a tax for being able to then add more powerful datasheets. For the Proteus Kill Team specifically, the initial 5 models are our beloved Deathwatch Veterans, and we are then able to add 0 to 4 Vanguard Veteran, 0 to 2 Veteran Biker, or 0 to 4 Deathwatch Terminator models. What is important here, especially for new players or players new to the Deathwatch, is that kill teams now have their own datasheet, meaning that no keywords, abilities or anything like that carries over from the original datasheets of the models involved. The most obvious example of this is Vanguard Veterans being referred to as a kill team veteran with a jump pack, but unlike what happened to the Primaris kill teams, where they could more easily streamline the names of all the different models, here we have too much of a variety for that to happen, so the way they solve this is that veteran bikers are called kill team bikers, and Deathwatch Terminators are called kill team Terminators. This is basically GW's attempt to separate the original models from the actual kill team rules, and as a result, we have to refer to this kill team datasheet for weapons, war gear options and abilities, instead of those from these models' original datasheets. Confusing enough? Well, let's go through the Proteus Kill Team datasheet itself then. Starting with keywords, there are 3 things of note here. The first is that Vanguard Veterans have neither the fly nor the jump pack keyword, but similar to what happens with Inceptors in the Indomitor kill team, they get the jump pack war gear ability as a rules equivalent. For the veteran bikers, they don't have mounted, but rather the infantry keyword, and unlike 9th edition, they will always keep this, regardless of what models are left in the kill team. Yes, they can still drive through walls. Then speaking of kill team, the Deathwatch Veterans are the sole unit that already has the kill team keyword outside of being in the actual kill team. I suppose GW just kind of sees them as one by themselves, and as a result, this is an extra consideration when deciding between running Deathwatch Veterans on their own or as part of a Proteus kill team. Moving on to the abilities, here we have the Proteus Doctrines, which replaces all the individual abilities of these models' original datasheets. What the Proteus Doctrine does is that it grants +1 to hit whenever attacking a unit that is not below half strength. Given the immense potential output of a Proteus kill team, I think this ability is actually very decent, as it is unlikely that we would want to chase after leftovers anyway. Having said that, however, I think it is worth pointing out that Deathwatch Terminators are giving up their Deep Strike, Teleport Homer, and the Deathwatch Veterans their amazing hit reroll ability, and as a result, I would consider the overall trade as acceptable, but nothing to necessarily write home about. Anyway, moving on to the war gear options, here I think GW had to put everything fits on 2 sides of a datasheet to the test, and as we will see in a moment, pretty much failed. When compared to 9th edition, we have a few notable changes. As we are not getting any sergeants in kill teams anymore, we are missing out on some sergeant exclusive war gear like the Xenophase blade. Furthermore, the vets can also not mix a long vigil ranged weapon with an Astartes shield. If we wanted the latter, we would either have to go for the very underwhelming bolt gun plus Astartes shield, or go with the long vigil melee weapon and the Astartes shield instead. Personally, I think this is a little underwhelming, and they should just have allowed the ranged weapon plus shield combo as well. On the bright side of things, when going for a maxed size kill team, we can put up to 4 heavy weapons or heavy hammers on our 5 Deathwatch Veterans, as the whole 2 for every 5 models does not refer to any specific ones. For the Deathwatch Terminators, they can also pick up to 3 heavy weapons, which is pretty amazing, given that we can include a max of 4 of them. Now, I guess this was the moment when GW ran out of space on the datasheet, and as a result, left out any additional war gear options for Vanguard Veterans, leaving them stuck with a long vigil melee weapon only. Now, given that GW pretty much butchered VanVets for 10th edition, and my suspicion is that they did this to sell us the Primaris version later on, this is not a big loss for the time being, but for the sake of consistency, I really would prefer if GW properly balanced their datasheets, rather than leaving out stuff for reasons such as printing space or what is being sold in boxes. Anyway, with the long list of war gear covered, we can then also attach leaders to a Proteus Kill Team, and the way this works is that any character that can be attached to a Vanguard Veteran squad can also be attached to this kill team. Of special note here is that there are now different datasheets for VanVets with and without jump packs, so this refers to the foot slogging ones. Anyway, the good news is that this leaves us with an extensive list featuring our unique Watchmaster, Watch Captain Artemis, Firstborn Captain, Lieutenant, Librarian and Chaplain. Note that because the Firstborn Apothecary and Ancient are now exclusive to the Command Squad, we are lacking such an attachment option for our Firstborn units. Then lastly, a word on toughness, where it gets quite interesting for a Proteus Kill Team with an attached leader. Due to Terminators finally getting their long overdue toughness 5 increase, a Proteus Kill Team consisting out of the 5 mandatory Deathwatch Veterans at toughness 4 and a combination of Terminators and Veteran Bikers both at toughness 5 will end up at a total toughness value of 5. This is due to the kill team rules stating that the unit's toughness is decided by the majority, or in case of a draw, the higher value. Now, what happens when we attach a leader to a Proteus Kill Team? The 10th edition core rules say that the toughness characteristic of the bodyguard models in that unit must be taken, even if the leader has a different toughness characteristic. However, given the fact that we are calculating the toughness value of that unit based on the number of models and their toughness, this will now put us into the situation where we have 6 models at toughness 4, aka the 5 vets and the leader, and only 5 models at toughness 5, resulting in an overall toughness value of 4 for the kill team, at least until we remove the first Deathwatch Veteran as a casualty and the attacking unit resolved all of its attack. The big question here is, of course, does the leader count towards the total number in the kill team when deciding its toughness? My guess is that it does, and we do as a result get that unfortunate toughness decrease, but I think it would be nice to have an official clarification from GW on how this is supposed to be played. With the basic rules out of the way, how can we best make use of the Proteus Kill Team in 10th edition? Before we get started with the actual Proteus Kill Team itself, a quick word on running Deathwatch Veterans versus running a Proteus Kill Team. Why is this relevant? Well, because as I previously mentioned during the rules coverage, Deathwatch Veterans already have the Kill Team keyword, as well as an amazing default ability. As such, unlike with some of the other kill teams, the vets are not an actual tax. Furthermore, as it currently stands, the Proteus Kill Team is also the only kill team that pays a premium in points regardless of unit composition. There is no way to break even, we will always overpay. With that in mind, there are still plenty of good reasons to go with the Proteus Kill Team, and what I would consider the current optimal composition looks as following: 5 Deathwatch Veterans, 4 Terminators and 1 Veteran Biker. If we could go up to 5 Terminators, that would most likely be the way to go, even though the extra mobility from the Veteran Biker can come in handy. Thanks to the huge selection of war gear, a Proteus Kill Team then also has the option to either go heavy ranged or heavy melee. For the first, 3 Terminators could be equipped with either Cyclone missile launchers or the assault cannons. Either of these loadouts are competitive, even though the first might offer a greater target flexibility. The 4th Terminator would then get a Thunderhammer Storm Shield and act as a tank. For the Deathwatch Veterans, here we could go with either 4 Infernus Heavy Bolters or 4 Frag Cannons. Again, both have their advantages, though the first is likely the better choice if you are looking to play more defensive. The last vet then gets a long Witchel melee weapon and an Astartes shield. It might also be worth it to drop a heavy weapon on the vets for another shield loadout for extra durability. In contrast, on a melee-oriented Proteus Kill Team, we would go full hammer shields on the Terminators, as well as 4 heavy hammers on the vets, plus the obligatory Astartes shield. Having said that, I think that especially for the melee version, a 10-man Deathwatch Veteran squad is a huge contender, given its much more attractive price tag. Furthermore, looking at the leader options, given that this is the only actual kill team where we can include a Watchmaster, this might be the way to go, as he is currently pretty much an auto-include. As an alternative, or when running multiple Proteus kill teams, I think a regular captain would also be a great option for access to that free strap. Speaking of multiple Proteus kill teams, even though a pricey matter, I think this is the current best candidate to run multiple versions of. Something to keep in mind here is the mentioned toughness value of the kill team, which I already covered in detail in the rules section. All in all, while a bit on the expensive side, the Proteus Kill Team remains a staple of competitive Deathwatch lists in 10th edition, and even though the unit composition is more or less set in stone, at least there are various ways to run the war gear itself. Then last but not least, let's have a look at some modeling recommendations. Well, I think you guys know what's coming. While I might let you slip away without magnetizing any Primaris models, this is the place where magnets become mandatory. There are simply too many good war gear options, and that's how we want to keep it. For the Deathwatch Veterans, now more than ever, a Vanguard Veteran is just another Deathwatch Veteran, so if we are magnetizing both weapon arms, as well as the jump pack or backpack respectively, we can play them as either. This is now highly recommended, given that GW pretty much confirmed that the Vanguard Veteran kit will be going away, so expect Primaris Vanguard Veterans at some point during this edition. For the Terminators, again magnetizing the arms is recommended, and if you want to go the extra mile, the Cyclone missile launcher can also be magnetized with a regular magnet on top of the armor. For the Veteran Bikers, what I personally like to do is let the Marine drive one-handed while displaying the long Witchel melee weapon in the other hand, and that arm I magnetize for both consistency's sake and making the model future-proof. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the Proteus Kill Team of the Deathwatch in 10th edition. Starting with the mandatory yet amazing 5 Deathwatch Veterans, we can then add 0 to 4 Van Vet, 0 to 2 Veteran Biker, or 0 to 4 Terminator models. One drastic change from 9th edition is that kill teams now have their own datasheet, and the unit composition has everything labeled with different names when compared to the original models. While certainly confusing for new players, the point here is that none of these models retain abilities or keywords from their original datasheet, but get the ones from the Proteus Kill Team instead. Personally, I consider running 5 Deathwatch Veterans, 4 Terminators and 1 Veteran Biker the optimal unit composition, and this can be done as either a ranged or a melee heavy version. As it currently stands, given both the massive price tag of the Proteus Kill Team itself and the fact that regular Deathwatch Veterans also get the Kill Team keyword, as well as a powerful default ability, one might also look into running melee heavy vets as much cheaper, though less durable alternative. But returning to the Proteus Kill Team itself, I would then further recommend adding either a Watchmaster or a Captain as character support. Just like in 9th edition, I would currently consider the Proteus Kill Team as highly competitive, and one cannot go wrong with running either one or two of these in any Deathwatch list for the time being. Then lastly, as always, I highly recommend magnetizing the loadouts on all the models involved, as there are currently multiple viable war gear options, and this is expected to remain so over the course of this edition. So that's it for the guide to the Proteus Kill Team of the Deathwatch in 10th edition. What do you guys think about this particular kill team, and are you planning to include it into your current lists? Did GW do a good job balancing the abilities for this particular kill team? Any important rules or tactics that I missed? Let me know in the comments. Then finally, if you made it this far and I still have your attention, if you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated, as it helps me invest into future videos. For that, I have both a Ko-fi as well as a Patreon page, links are in the description. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.